I'm not wearing mascara today because otherwise I'd look like Tammy Faye Baker. So you're all going to have to bear with me as I sort of move in and out of what Tyler and Misa were speaking to, right? The joy of what is coming next and the such sadness around what is ending. So I wanted to talk to you today about what it means to answer the call. Because while I'm in the midst of answering the call to ministry, to being in service, so are you. So are you. There is a call for service to this world that is yours to do and to be and to show up as. And as we listen to what's going on in the news and these horrible, horrible stories of violence, this is our call. This is our wake-up call. Because something has to change. And it's hard to change. Because look at me where I am right now, navigating this change. It's uncomfortable, and it's amazing, and it's heartbreaking simultaneously. So as I have been navigating this for myself, and as I've been ruminating on what is happening in the world, it feels to me that there's 4 components that are necessary for us to step into and to anchor when we are knowing in your heart, and I know you know this, that there is something that you are being asked to show up as, that perhaps you have never shown up as that way before. Or perhaps it's a natural extension of something that you have always been doing, but you undervalued it. So we have 4 spaces here that I'm going to invite us into. The first is receptivity. We have to be receptive to the heart. We have to be receptive to what is murmuring to us. And sometimes what's murmuring to us is pain. That's what I hear when I look at what's happening in the news right now. The pain of this, to me, completely unnecessary violence. The pain that people are in as they grieve their lost ones, the pain that the person is in that thinks that picking up a weapon of destruction is the answer. How much pain is that person in? How lost are they in that pain? So we need to be receptive to that within ourselves too. We can't avoid it. We can't pretend that it's not there. And then we need to stand and anchor in faith. Right? And Tyler spoke to that so beautifully at the opening. It's like, Tyler, did you know that was in my talk? Faith in unity is a power. It is our capacity to know something, even when we can't see it. Our capacity to create something, even when we can't see it yet. And then the hardest part that I'm in the middle of right now is the release, right? The letting go of what was, the letting go no matter how good it was. It's easy to let go of the stuff that sucks, right? Like, I don't want that anymore. It's really easy to let that go. But how do we let go of the things that are beautiful and loving and supportive? And sometimes we have to let go of those in order for us to grow. In order for us to understand a different way to be supported, to support ourselves. And then the last piece is courage. Because let me tell you, it's asking courage from all of us. Courage to step out in a new way, courage to just say no. I know I sound like the 1980s with Nancy Reagan, right? But there is a place where we just have to say no. Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was one of the early teachers, she was called the teacher's teacher in New Thought because she taught all of the founders of all the various New Thought denominations. They all studied with her. And she has something which she calls the emphatic no. And that we have to stand in that emphatic no just as much as we stand in our ecstatic yes. Unity is all about yes, yes, yes. But if we're not saying no, we are not actually creating a space for us to truly build something new. We have to be as fierce in the no as we are in our yes. And that requires great courage, because sometimes what we're saying no to is something that is yummy. Yeah? It's hard. So I love this quote from Carl Jung. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. This is this receptivity piece, that we need to be listening to the murmuring of our heart. We need to be willing to awaken to something that is new. For me, it's a new arena of leadership that I am being called to step out in. What is it for you? What are you called to step out in? What is the next arena for you? And don't look out there in the world for it, because it doesn't exist yet. It's waiting for you to show up and make it happen. So the only place it exists is if you look within your own heart and awaken. Awaken to what that is calling out to you. And it might be pain that's calling out to you. It might be anger that's calling out to you. And that's what brings us to the next piece, which is faith. Because we can get lost in that emotional overwhelm. We can get lost in the anger and the sadness and all of that. And what we know and believe in Unity is that love is always the answer. It doesn't matter what the question is. Love is always the answer. I feel so honored. I was thinking about this morning, the window that Chris and I, with Ash and Tom, sort of sponsored, and that is what is emblazoned on it. Love is the answer. So in those moments of pain, in those moments of anger, in those moments of deep frustration and powerlessness, at the root of that, underneath that, at the very center of your heart, murmuring to you always, is love. And that we are all called to be a larger expression of that love. I love this quote, that faith is the bird that feels the dawn and sings before first light. That is what we are all being called to, because if we look at this world around us, boy, it does not feel like dawn is coming, does it? And yet we need to be the bird that is feeling the dawn and acting into it, choosing it again and again and again and again, so that it can become real, that we can actually, truly make this a world that works for everyone. And then we come to the place that I'm in the midst of right now, which is the release piece. And release can be so easy sometimes, and yet it can also be one of the hardest places that we step into. And as I've been navigating this emotional roller coaster that I have been on, me, emotional? Huh? What? Shocking, right? As I have been navigating this emotional roller coaster, what kept coming to mind was the story of Lot's wife. Now, I believe that Lot's wife always got a raw deal, right? Number one, she doesn't have a name, so there we are, right? Lot's wife, that's her entire existence. For those of you who might not be as familiar with this story, it is from Sodom and Gomorrah, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where the angels come down, and they only find one person who is actually, in their perception, like worthy of being saved. This is a really horrible story, just so you guys know. It's not my favorite story, but Lot's wife really speaks to me. So the angels tell Lot and his family that they are going to be saved, but these two cities are going to be destroyed. Now, this is something we don't believe in Unity. We don't believe that anybody is past redemption. We don't believe that anybody is past being able to discover the truth of who they are. But when we look at it metaphorically, there is something perhaps that needs to be destroyed in order for that redemption to actually be made possible. So remember, we hold all of these stories in a metaphysical context. So the angels tell Lot, do not look back. Do not look back. And yet, as the family is leaving and the thunderbolts are descending and the city is literally burning, Lot's wife looks back. She glances back. And in that glance, she is turned into a pillar of salt. Told you, she really gets a raw deal. But when we look at this metaphysically, what happens in that, now, normal commentary around this moment, at least what I grew up in my Jewish conservative Orthodox faith, is that Lot's wife is a reminder of what happens when we don't have faith, when we actually keep looking back, right? And it's almost a punishment. She does not get, because she didn't have enough faith, she doesn't get to move on with everybody else. I have never understood that. Because for me, I have always understood that the reason why she glances back is because that was her home. Those were people she knew. That was her community. And to walk away without any connection or acknowledgement is to do a spiritual bypass. And in that moment, she glances back, not because she doesn't have faith, but because she is filled with compassion. And in that moment of looking back, her grief overwhelms her, and she literally becomes a pillar of salt of tears. And our tears can prevent us from being able to move forward. So there's a balance in here where we are being invited to show up in the world with compassion and an open heart, and that means that we're touched, and it means that we grieve, and it means that we sometimes turn into a pillar of salt. I have felt that way, that I haven't been able to move because the grief has just been, the idea of something else was creating such a cascade of grief. And yet, in Scripture, it says, remember Lot's wife. Those who try to make their life secure will lose it, but those who lose their life will keep it. So there's a balance here between acknowledging what it is that you're walking away from, what you're being invited to step into something new, because that is what we need to do in order to be made new. We can't hold on. We can't grasp. We can't try to fix things in time and in space. No matter how good they are, change is a-coming. So are we going to continually be looking backwards and grieving? How many of us are still stuck on stories from our past? Hurts that happened how many times ago? How many years ago? Are we still carrying that? Don't be Lot's wife. Don't keep looking back in a way that freezes you and stops you from being able to move forward. Because then you are losing your life. You think you're keeping it, but you're actually not. And as we step into this process of release, can you feel how much courage this is requiring? How much courage we are called to step into. Nelson Mandela has said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave person is not one who does not feel afraid, but one who conquers that fear. Actually, his quote had all male pronouns, and I changed it. Just to be honest. Nah. So how do we conquer our fear? Not by pretending it's not there, not by ignoring it, not by saying, that spiritual bypass piece. It's going straight through it, right through to the very heart of God. What is it that you're afraid of? What is it that is holding you back from stepping out? What is it that you are afraid to let go of because you think when you let go of it that you're going to fall? I am living proof that as you let go, you just get lifted higher. right? That is actually what's possible. Stepping into something that's an even larger arena. So how can you show up for this world? How can you let go of whatever ideas, the things that are holding us back may be a situation or a person, but it can also be our limiting beliefs. What is it that you believe about the world? What is it that you believe about yourself? Do you believe that you can actually make a difference in this world? That if we actually get together, if we actually do the work internally and show up, like in Had a Revelation, as the hands of God, doing the work in real time, can we absolutely get gun control in this country? I say yes. I say absolutely yes. Does it mean that we have to change? Yes. We have to let go of these ideas that say that someone else is going to do it for us. We have to stop looking back at what was before AK whatevers were allowed everywhere. We have to stop looking back and just standing immobilized in our grief. We are being invited to step in a completely new way. And that is for each of us personally in your life. You know the things you're holding on to that you really don't need to hold on to anymore. And you know the things that you love so much that you can actually loosen your grip. Because I know my fear was I was losing you. I'm not losing you. That's not possible. Because you're right here. And I know that I am in your hearts as well. And that is faith. Our faith is what allows us to move forward when we don't think we can. That love is always the answer. So I'm going to leave you with this last quote. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. What is it time for you to let go of? How are you being invited to show up in this world in service to something that is so magnificent and so strong and so powerful? Nothing is against you. What if you actually really believe that? Everything is working for you. Everything is working for you. Because we are being invited to lead the charge, to lead the shift in consciousness. That is Unity's mantra, that we are on the leading edge of consciousness. And that means that each of us continually have to do the work and allow what was to actually become what we might be, to embrace possibility, to embrace the truth that we are that powerful.